Welcome to our channel. We're thrilled to have you here with us today. Each story we share is crafted to captivate your imagination and take you on an unforgettable journey. If you're enjoying what you see, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community. And hey, if you want to make sure you don't miss the next special story we have for you tomorrow, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for more, and let's dive into today's adventure. How a dog's bark revealed an espionage plot at a police officer's funeral. The shocking truth. It was a bright but somber Tuesday, the kind where the sun shone softly, as if it too understood the weight of the moment. The air was still. Not a whisper of wind disturbed the serenity that surrounded the gathering. Rows of police officers stood in rigid formation, their faces solemn as they paid tribute to a fallen hero. The funeral was for Officer Jake Miller, a 33-year-old who had been tragically shot in the line of duty just 6 days earlier. He had served with pride, and his death left a void in the hearts of those who knew him. Among the mourners, there was one special attendee who was different from the rest. Max, a 6-year-old German Shepherd, had been assigned to ceremonial duty that morning. He stood near the grave, his body tense as he scanned the crowd, his loyal eyes fixed on Officer Miller's resting place. Max had served alongside Jake for 3 years, their bond transcending that of mere partners. They had shared triumphs and hardships, their bond stronger than blood. Max had always been more than a K-9 officer. He was family. The ceremony unfolded quietly, as bagpipes played their mournful tune, filling the air with a sorrow that seemed to grip the very earth beneath them. Max stood motionless as if in deep contemplation. But something was wrong. A faint whimper escaped him, followed by a growl that vibrated deep within his chest. Without warning, he lunged toward the grave, his paws digging furiously into the freshly turned soil. Dirt flew through the air as Max's claws scraped against the ground with desperation. At first, no one knew what to make of it. They thought it was grief, the natural reaction of a dog mourning the loss of his partner. After all, they had seen this kind of behavior before with other dogs, who seemed to understand death in ways humans could not fully comprehend. Max had not eaten for 2 days, barely moved, and had not barked once. His behavior was completely out of character. But now, as he furiously dug into the earth, everyone around him froze, unsure of what to do. Officer Kelly, a fellow K-9 handler, rushed over to Max, calling his name, her voice filled with confusion and concern. "No, boy, come here," she shouted, trying to pull him away. But Max ignored her, continuing to dig with a frantic urgency that only seemed to grow. His body shook, his nose pressed to the ground. It wasn't grief. It wasn't random. Max was signaling something important. Kelly stood still, watching in stunned silence as Max barked 3 sharp, deliberate barks, each one carrying a sense of purpose. Those barks were not the usual noise of a dog in distress. They were methodical, calculated. They were a signal, the same signal Max had given when he found a kidnapped girl behind a dumpster just 6 months ago. The same signal he had used to uncover a buried weapon in the Smith case. Kelly's heart raced as she realized what Max was trying to tell them. There was something buried under Officer Miller's grave, something that shouldn't be there. The priest stopped mid-prayer, the honor guard exchanged confused glances, and the widow, standing just feet away, covered her mouth in horror. The mourners were all frozen, unable to comprehend what was unfolding before them. Max had become an unwilling agent of truth, unearthing a secret buried beneath the grave of his fallen partner. At first, a junior officer tried to pull Max away, murmuring that it was time to let Jake rest. But Max's growl was not aimed at the officer. It was directed at the dirt, at the grave itself. It was as if Max knew that something was wrong, something hidden deep in the earth. His instincts refused to be ignored. Kelly's voice broke the silence, her words firm but filled with urgency. "No, he's trying to tell us something." She crouched beside Max, placing a hand on his collar. Her eyes locked with his, and in that moment, she understood. Max had never failed her before. She had seen that same desperate look in his eyes, the night he had saved her life during a dangerous drug raid in Queens. It was the same look now, Trust me, I know what I'm doing." With that, the decision was made. The ceremony paused. The crowd was ushered away as Kelly made the call to bring in 2 detectives, a forensic officer, and a coroner's team. They would open the grave again. The decision shocked everyone, but Kelly knew that when Max was alerting like this, they could not ignore it. Not now. Not ever. As the crowd stood still in disbelief, Max continued to dig, his paws moving with a frantic energy that no one had ever seen before. His nose was pressed to the ground, his body trembling with urgency. Officer Kelly, crouching beside him, knew that there was no turning back. Max was sending a message, and it was one that couldn't be ignored. The mourners, unsure of what to do, looked at each other in confusion, but Kelly's focus never wavered. She knew the importance of Max's instincts, and she wasn't about to let them go unheeded. "Something's wrong," she muttered under her breath, her voice steady but filled with urgency. She turned to the other officers, her eyes hardening. "We need to open this grave now." The officers hesitated, some exchanging uncomfortable glances. One of them, a junior officer, stepped forward and tried to gently pull Max away. "It's okay, buddy," he said, his voice low, trying to calm the dog down. "He's gone. Let him rest." But Max wasn't having any of it. He growled at the officer, not in anger but in warning. His body stiffened, his tail raised high, and his eyes never left the spot where his paws were digging. The soil flew in all directions as Max worked faster, more determined than ever. There was something beneath that grave, something that had to be uncovered, something that shouldn't be there. Kelly's voice cut through the air, firm and unwavering. "No, we're not leaving until we find out what's buried here." Her hand rested firmly on Max's collar, her gaze locked onto the officers. She didn't care about the ceremony or the objections from the crowd. Max had never steered her wrong before, not once, and she wasn't going to let him down now. The crowd, still unsure of what was happening, began to murmur. The priest stopped mid-prayer, and the honor guard stood frozen, their faces a mixture of confusion and disbelief. The widow, barely 5 feet away, covered her mouth in horror as she watched the scene unfold. It was as if they were all witnessing something they couldn't quite comprehend. A dog digging at a grave, at a funeral. No one had ever seen anything like it. Minutes felt like hours, but finally, after what seemed like an eternity, Kelly made the decision. She stood up, her voice steady as she spoke to the officers. "Call it off. We're bringing in the detectives. This grave needs to be opened." The whispers grew louder, and the tension in the air was palpable. Some of the officers muttered about disrespecting the dead, while others looked at Kelly with doubt in their eyes. But she was resolute. She didn't care what anyone thought. Max had signaled something was wrong, and she wasn't about to let them ignore it. Within minutes, the cemetery was on lockdown. Kelly, without hesitation, called for 2 detectives, a forensic officer, and a coroner's team. The decision shocked everyone. No one had ever witnessed something like this before. The priest objected, as did several officers, but Kelly stood her ground. "We don't ignore a K9 alert, not now, not ever." With careful precision, the detectives arrived, and the burial site was carefully reopened. Max's tail was stiff as he sat beside the grave, his eyes never leaving the spot where he had dug. He was quiet now, almost as if he were waiting for them to do their part. His job, in a sense, was done. As the soil was peeled away, layer by layer, a feeling of dread settled over the gathered officers. The coffin, once sealed, was cracked open slowly. And then, silence. It was unbearable. When the lid was lifted, everyone's worst fear was confirmed. The coffin was empty, but what lay inside instead was far more chilling. There, at the bottom of the grave, lay a blood-stained police badge, and beneath it, a plastic bag. Inside, the bag was a phone, still powered on, still recording. Max's ears perked up as he stared at the bag, his body stiffening. He had found it. The truth was right in front of them. Kelly's voice was a whisper, barely audible over the shock of the discovery. "Where the hell is Jake?" she muttered as she stared at the phone, trying to make sense of the situation. She picked it up, her hands shaking slightly. This wasn't just a missing officer, this was something far bigger. The phone was still recording. It was time-stamped at exactly 4:03 a.m., the morning of the funeral. Kelly pressed play. What she heard next would change everything. A voice, unmistakably Jake's, crackled through the speaker, full of terror. "If anyone finds this, I don't know how much time I have. They replaced me. It's not me in the coffin. If you're hearing this, they've already done it. I tried to get away, but they drugged me. I think someone on the inside helped. I heard them say she's the key. Don't let them find her. She knows too much." The recording ended abruptly, followed by the sound of static, a thump, and a final breathless groan. Kelly's stomach sank as she realized the enormity of the situation. Jake Miller wasn't just dead. He had been replaced, and someone had orchestrated the whole thing. The funeral wasn't just for a fallen officer. It was part of a much larger, far more dangerous game. Max had uncovered a truth no one could have predicted, and it was only just beginning. The atmosphere in the cemetery had shifted dramatically. What was once a somber moment of grief had turned into something far darker, more unsettling. Kelly stood frozen, the phone in her hand, as the implications of what they had just uncovered began to sink in. The blood-stained badge, the plastic bag, and the chilling message from Officer Jake Miller. It was all too much to process at once. But Kelly's instincts were clear. They needed to find Jake. Fast. With the phone still in her hand, Kelly quickly turned to the officers around. "We need to track down Clara Lewis," she said, her voice steady but edged with urgency. "She's the key. We don't know how, but everything points to her." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. Clara, a 28-year-old kindergarten teacher, had been at the funeral just a few feet away from the grave. But why? No one could figure that out yet. They had no idea what connection she had to Jake Miller's disappearance, but the message from the phone was clear. Clara was involved, whether she knew it or not. The investigation had taken a strange turn. Clara had no known ties to law enforcement. She wasn't connected to anyone in the police force, at least not in any obvious way. But there she was, at the funeral, standing quietly at the back, just like any other member of the public. She was an innocent bystander, or so it seemed at first. Kelly's mind raced as she replayed the words from Jake's recording in her head. "She's the key. Don't let them find her. She knows too much." What did Jake mean by that? Who was they? And why was Clara the key to this entire twisted operation? Kelly didn't have all the answers yet, but one thing was clear. Clara was in danger. Back at the precinct, the officers worked fast, pulling up Clara's information, trying to make sense of the puzzle pieces. She had no criminal record, no history with the police. So why was she suddenly at the center of a case that now felt like something out of a spy thriller? As Kelly continued to pore over the details, a uniformed officer walked into the room, his face grave. "Detective Kelly, we've got her." Clara had been located. She was at a nearby diner, sitting alone, looking pale and rattled. Kelly's heart quickened. The woman was already in the spotlight, unknowingly thrust into a conspiracy much bigger than herself. But what did she know? And how could she possibly be connected to Jake's abduction? "Get a team together," Kelly said, her voice firm. "We're bringing her in for questioning." The drive to the diner felt like an eternity. The weight of the investigation hung heavy in the air. Kelly couldn't shake the feeling that Clara was walking into something far more dangerous than she realized. Was she being used? Or was she somehow complicit in this elaborate plot? The question gnawed at Kelly as she focused on the road ahead, her hands gripping the wheel tightly. When they arrived, Clara was sitting at a booth near the window, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee, her eyes darting nervously to the door every few seconds. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her face pale and drawn. As soon as Clara saw the officers approach, her expression shifted from surprise to anxiety. She knew something was coming. She had felt it long before they arrived. "Clara." "Lewis?" Kelly asked gently, her tone calm but serious. Clara nodded, her eyes wide. "I didn't mean to cause any trouble," she whispered. "I don't even know why I'm here. I wasn't trying to interrupt the funeral, I just felt like I had to come. Something was pulling me here." Kelly sat across from her, watching her closely. "Clara, I need you to tell me everything. What do you know about Officer Jake Miller? Why were you at the funeral today?" Clara's hands trembled slightly as she set down her cup. She swallowed hard before speaking. "I don't know him. Not really. Don't know anyone in law enforcement, but I've been getting these strange messages, texts, and calls for weeks. They didn't make sense. Coordinates, times, names. I blocked the number, but then someone left a note on my car that said, 'Don't trust the funeral.' I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know." Kelly's heart raced. She felt the walls closing in, but her gut told her that Clara wasn't the mastermind behind all of this. She was just another pawn in a much larger game. "Clara, listen to me," Kelly said, her voice soft but urgent. "Someone's been using you. You're in danger. We think they've been watching you, tracking you, but we don't know why." Clara's eyes widened in horror. I didn't know. I didn't ask for any of this. I swear. I don't know. Anything about Jake Miller?" Just as Kelly was about to press further, Clara's eyes shifted, a flicker of recognition crossing her face. She gasped, her hand trembling as she reached into her coat pocket. "I've been wearing this. I didn't even realize it." She pulled out a small, flat pouch from her jacket and opened it carefully. Inside was a small device, blinking faintly. Kelly's breath caught in her throat. It was a tracker, a homemade one, and it was still transmitting. Max's growl echoed in Kelly's mind, his instinct telling her the truth before her mind could catch up. "That's a lure," Kelly whispered, her heart pounding. "We need to move, now." The chase was on. They had uncovered a web of espionage and betrayal that threatened to destroy everything. Clara, unknowingly caught in the middle, was about to become the most important piece in a dangerous game. And Max, with his unwavering loyalty, had already made it clear that no one, not even the deepest conspirators, was beyond his reach. Clara sat in the interrogation room, her hands trembling with uncertainty. Kelly couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong. The tracker they had just found on Clara was no coincidence. Whoever was behind this operation had gone to great lengths to involve her, and now they were running out of time. The faint, blinking device in her hand had only one purpose: to track Clara's every move. But who was watching her, and why? Max, always on high alert, had become even more restless. His body was stiff with tension, his ears twitching at every sound. Kelly couldn't help but notice how the dog seemed to be connected to the situation in ways no one else could comprehend. Max's instincts had never failed him before. The same instincts that had saved Kelly's life, the same instincts that had led him to unearth a hidden plot beneath Officer Jake Miller's grave. There was something about Clara, something that Max could sense, that no one else had yet to uncover. "Kelly, I've got something," an officer called out, his voice urgent. Kelly turned to him as he handed her a file. "We pulled Clara's phone records and email logs. There's something strange in her inbox." Kelly's eyes narrowed. As she flipped through the pages, there it was, emails and text messages sent from an unknown number, with coordinates and strange, cryptic names. But what stood out the most was the recent message she had received, just a few hours before the funeral. It read, "Don't trust the funeral. They're watching you." The message was chilling. Someone was pulling the strings, manipulating Clara, and she had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went. Back at the precinct, Kelly's mind raced. She felt like a piece of the puzzle was still missing, something critical that could turn the case around. Why Clara? Why had they chosen her? As part of their operation? The more she thought about it, the more she realized how little they actually knew about Clara's life outside of her interactions with this twisted conspiracy. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Ruiz. "We've got a lead. You need to see this." Kelly's stomach dropped. She knew Ruiz wouldn't message her without something important. She quickly grabbed her jacket and hurried out of the room. When Kelly arrived at Ruiz's office, the tension in the air was palpable. Ruiz was standing in front of a wall covered with photos, surveillance footage, and information about Clara's husband, Ben Lewis. Kelly stepped forward, her eyes scanning the room. Ruiz pointed to a series of photos pinned to the board. "Ben's not just a tech consultant," Ruiz said grimly. "He's been living under multiple aliases. We found a stash of high-end surveillance equipment in his garage. Drones, scramblers, GPS disruptors. This isn't just about spying on the police department. This goes much deeper." Kelly's mind spun. "So Clara's husband is involved in all this?" Ruiz nodded, his expression hardening. "He's not just a consultant. He's deep cover, embedded in American soil. He's been gathering intel using Clara as a decoy. And he's, been doing it for months. The question is, how long has he been planning this?" Kelly felt a surge of anger and disbelief. Clara had been used. But the real question now was what Ben's true intentions were, and whether Clara had any idea of the monster she had married. "We need to find Clara before Ben does," Kelly said, determination flooding her voice. "Get every officer on this. If Ben's already gone underground, we need to move fast." With the pieces of the puzzle falling into place, Kelly's next step was clear. They needed to locate Ben, but more importantly, they needed to protect Clara. She was a pawn in a much larger game, and she was running out of time. As they mobilized their forces, Kelly couldn't help but think about Max. The dog had always been there, his instincts sharp and unwavering. And now, with the situation spiraling out of control, Max's presence was more important than ever. He wasn't just a K-9 officer. He was a symbol of loyalty, trust, and in this case, survival. With the clock ticking, Kelly made the call. "We're going after Ben, and we're not stopping until we bring him down." The pursuit was on. Max, as always, was by her side, ready to sniff out the truth no matter how deep it was buried. And Kelly was more determined than ever to uncover the entire conspiracy and protect the innocent woman, who had unknowingly been caught in the web of espionage. The air in the precinct had grown tense as Kelly and Ruiz prepared for what could be the most dangerous part of this investigation yet. Clara was no longer just a witness. She had unknowingly been thrust into the heart of a covert operation that was much larger and more dangerous than anyone had imagined. Her husband, Ben Lewis, was the key, and the trail was leading them straight to him. But where was he? And more importantly, was Clara still in danger? Kelly couldn't stop thinking about the tracker they had found on Clara. A homemade device, sophisticated yet terrifyingly simple. It was clear that someone had been monitoring her every move, waiting for the right moment to act. As Max paced in the corner of the precinct, his body tense and alert, Kelly felt the weight of the case, pressing down on her. Every second counted, and they were running out of time. "We're not letting him slip through our fingers," Kelly said, her voice low but firm. Ruiz nodded in agreement. He had already sent teams to search for any sign of Ben, but so far, they had come up empty-handed. The man was like a ghost vanishing off the grid as soon as he'd come under investigation. But Kelly knew Ben's pride and arrogance wouldn't let him stay hidden for long. He had been too deeply embedded in this operation, and he wouldn't be able to resist a final move. The team had gathered in the war room, a large conference room filled with maps, surveillance footage, and evidence of Ben's connections. They had traced Ben's movements over the past few weeks and uncovered a pattern of activity that pointed to an old storage facility on the outskirts of the city. It was isolated, hidden, and exactly the kind of place someone like Ben would use to lay low. Kelly stood by the map, tracing the route with her finger. "This is it. We move out in 30 minutes. We find Ben and we make sure Clara stays safe." She turned to Ruiz. "We'll need backup from the bomb squad. Ben has been too careful, and he's got resources we can't even begin to understand." Ruiz gave a quick nod and made the call, rallying the necessary teams. The tension in the air was palpable. Kelly could feel her heart pounding as they prepared to move out. She knew they were getting closer to Ben, but a sense of unease settled in her stomach. Max, as always, seemed to sense it too. The dog's ears were perked, his body rigid with anticipation. He knew this would be the moment, when everything changed. As they approached the storage facility, Kelly couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The place was quiet, too quiet. It sat in the shadows of the city, surrounded by abandoned warehouses and broken fences. It was the perfect hiding spot for someone who didn't want to be found. And Kelly had a sinking feeling that this was where the story would reach its climax. Max's body stiffened as they neared the entrance. He had been barking occasionally, his low growl reverberating through the air. He was ready. Kelly could feel the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. She motioned for the team to spread out and take positions. They were close now, too close to make any mistakes. Kelly and Ruiz made their way to the front of the building, the rest of the team following closely behind. Max was just a few paces ahead, his movements deliberate, his focus unwavering. They reached the door, and Kelly motioned for the team to get ready. The building was dark, the only light coming from the distant glow of the street lamps outside. Felt like a trap. Kelly's instinct screamed that something wasn't right, but they had no choice but to push forward. "On 3, Kelly whispered, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. 1, 2, 3. The door was kicked in and the team flooded into the room, guns drawn. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of Max's bark echoing through the building. They moved quickly, clearing the rooms one by one, checking every corner. But there was no sign of Ben. The place was empty, save for a few scattered boxes and a pile of discarded equipment. But then Max froze. His body went rigid. His eyes locked onto something in the back corner of the room. Kelly followed his gaze, her heart skipping a beat. There, hidden behind a stack of crates, was a small black SUV. It was parked in an alley, the engine still warm. "Ben," Kelly muttered under her breath. "He's still here." They rushed toward the vehicle, the tension mounting with each step. Max led the way, his instincts sharper than ever. Kelly's mind raced as they approached the SUV, knowing that this could be the final confrontation. They had to act quickly. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed from behind them, a sharp metallic sound. Kelly spun around just in time to see the flicker of movement, a shadow slipping into the darkness. Ben! The chase was on. Max bolted forward, barking with all the fury of a predator on the hunt. Kelly and Ruiz followed, adrenaline pumping as they sprinted after him. This was it, the moment they had been waiting for. And as the footsteps of their suspect grew louder, Kelly knew that Max, their most loyal ally, would lead them to the truth. No one was going to escape this time. They were about to uncover everything, all the lies, all the secrets. They were getting closer to the man who had been pulling the strings, and Kelly was more determined than ever to bring him down. Max wasn't just a dog. He was their guide in a world of shadows, and together they would finish what they started. We'd love to hear from you. What do you think of this intense journey so far? The twists, the turns, and the secrets being uncovered, it's clear that Max, the loyal K9, is the key to solving this mystery. But what about Clara? Do you think she was truly innocent in all of this, or was she unknowingly pulled into something much darker? And what about Ben? Could anyone have seen the truth behind his carefully constructed life, or was he always one? Step ahead, we're eager to know your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from and what you think of the investigation so far. Do you have any theories about what's coming next? What do you think the final reveal will be? Your feedback means a lot to us, and we love reading each and every comment. So don't hold back, share your thoughts, predictions, or just let us know how you're feeling about this thrilling story. And remember, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next part of this gripping tale. We've got more surprises in store, and you won't want to miss them.